Welcome to the Sonic Days podcast, home of all things audio. This season was recorded live at Sonic Days 2024. Today we're diving into the future of podcasting, how to develop and empower new talent. As the medium continues to grow across the globe, so does the need to nurture the next generation of creators, producers, and storytellers. In this session, you'll hear from leading voices in the podcasting space as they share insights on how to create meaningful entry points in the industry, build sustainable careers, and expand access and diversity in audio storytelling.
Welcome. We are going to talk about the future of podcasting, how to develop and empower new talent. And for educational organization like Sonic College, of course, this is one of the most important questions. With us today, we have 4 guys, 1 ex-Sonic College students, and all of them now pros in the industry of podcasting. And I would say, I think we'll start here. You can just tell your name and why you're here.
Yeah, okay. My name is Søren Brunsgaard, and I'm the chairperson of the Danish podcasting industry organization called Center for Podcasting, which is an industry organization designed to gather all the various people working in podcasting and try to safeguard the podcasting industry's interest politically, but we also do all kinds of stuff to promote and develop podcasting.
And Dorte?
Yeah, my name is Dorte Palle. I'm the co-founder of Nordic Podcast Academy, where we teach and develop new talent and old talent. And I also have a production company called Rakkerpak Productions. It's in Copenhagen. The academy is located in Jutland, Struer, Lydens By, City of Sound. Yeah, and I have a background for like 25 years working at DR, making features and long formats in the culture department. And I started my career as a talent in DR at Talentholdet, where I was, on my 20th birthday, I think I was on the air for the first time many years ago.
And I am Anna. I'm educated here. Not here, actually, in Haderslev. And then I went into the podcast industry, and I've been teaching podcasting here on Sonic College. Been doing a lot of thinking about what's necessary for a sound designer to know when she's entering the podcast world, more than just having technical skills. And then I just started studying again myself, journalism, which is one of my points, I guess, that you need also some know-how about journalism when producing podcasts.
And then I have to, just say that
is a disclaimer.
Disclaimer, yes. We have 2 missing persons. One is Anna Stegger, and the other one is Sandra Mia from Zetland, and Anna Stegger from DR. And they were unfortunately couldn't be here. And 20 minutes ago, this guy didn't know that he would be sitting here giving a talk. So thank you for coming, and tell a bit about you.
Yeah, so you're stuck with me. But I didn't go to Sonic College. I actually applied, but didn't get in. I did on my application, I did a music edit on the former Justice Minister, Brian Mikkelsen. But if someone can find that application, I would very much like to hear it again, because okay. I don't think it was very good. No, but I'm at DR, Danish radio. I do a program called Genstart. I do the sound design for that. And before that, I've been working in film and television, both as a Foley artist and as a re-recording mixer and general sound designer for nearly 12 years, I think.
And my first question for you would be, what is actually a good podcast? Because we're talking about talent, but it should be talent to do something.
First of all, I think we have various characteristics within the podcasting industry. For instance, a sound designer. I don't think many people that work in podcasting really like that term. I mean, it kind of supposes that you're like this one-man band starting from scratch and doing a podcast. But what constitutes a person working in podcasting, a good talent or whatever, a professional? I think it's, first of all, of course, you have to know your craft. Even more so, you have to be curious. You have to be, know the rules so you can break them, or at least don't respect all the dogmas that are in podcasting. I think right now, podcasting is in sort of like a content crisis. I think there's a lot of concepts and podcasts that are just being copied out there. And the thing with podcasting is that it's basically a form of distribution of an MP3. So it can be anything. And we're yet to see the really artful podcasting, the really experimental ones. Also, we have a rich radio history with all kinds of content that hopefully will come back. For instance, fiction and reportage. That is, we're not seeing that this much anymore.
I don't think I see podcasting in a crisis. I see it as in a very, very exciting turning point. I once heard a guy call it that we are in the phase of we need more crap. I really like that term. It's just, I want one, come on. And we can make a lot of shitty podcasts because we just need some. And now we are like in the more pro phase where it's not enough just making crap. So I actually see a lot of nice tendencies, and I think that it will be more mature here in the next couple of years. But to answer your question, Finn, for me, a good podcast, it's like this triangle or a circle if you're more holistic. But if you have the target group, the listeners here, the concept, and the host, and I'm always like working on these three figures, and I think that when they play together, then it will be a very strong podcast that is worth listening to.
Yep. Do you want?
Yeah, because I think it's a good start here. So, yeah.
I think a good podcaster is able to take advantage of the fact that you only have the sound and not anything else. So sometimes a podcast can be just a cheap way to make a documentary or something like that. But a very good podcaster is able to use the sound in a way that makes it even better without the picture, like that tells the story in a way where the only right format is to listen.
I totally agree with Anna there. I think one who was able to sort of peer, we have a Danish word, peer, all of you, but I'm sorry, one person know that word, but something that will sort of tease the imagination. And I think a good podcaster is like, I would say like Anna is one who's very good at teasing the imagination and making the listener become the co-author in some sense. So when you listen to it, you sort of, especially when it's story-based, so I'm mostly into story-based and not so much the old interview style of podcasting where it's just an interview. But if you have a story, so one that will actually sort of tease the imagination and make you become the co-author in the sense that by yourself, when you're listening to it, you're actually rewriting the story and creating the images. I think some of you probably were at Audio Days. I don't know if you were, but Rob Rosenthal from Trainsmeet talked about that sound is the most visual medium in the sense that we actually create pictures. So I think a good podcaster, for me and from my way of thinking about podcasts, and there's many ways of thinking about it, but it's at least someone who can draw pictures for the mind.
Okay, and then now we make a little, we can play a bit and say, okay, all these guys out here, they are the new talented guys, and you're gonna pick one of them. What would you be looking for then?
I already picked one, Clara.
Okay.
So maybe I can just tell what in this very concrete example. because when we had our interview, Clara...
Tell about Clara is going to be...
my internee for next year in my production company. Yeah. I'm always looking for someone who also knows the storytelling, if you're talking sound design. Emil Rothstein said it earlier this morning that it's always what we're looking for, people who can tell stories and do the sound design as well. And it's like quite seldom, because it's like it takes many years to get good at both. So to combining it, so I'm not looking for people who can do everything at once, but I'm looking at talent who kind of get the sense of it. And then you can have your specialty in one field, but you should have a sense of it. Yeah?
Okay.
I was thinking a little bit like you on this one. When I was trying to make something that made sense for the students last year on the podcast module, I was thinking it's important that they don't go out and only focus on sound design and are very afraid of touching the story or having opinions about the story, because when we have a sound design podcast, the sound design shouldn't be something you put on when you made all the rest, and then you're like, okay, we would like some pling plong music also because sound design is in. So it has to be someone who can think in both journalism and sound designing.
And you're going to now actually your base is that people actually are almost journalism or almost a sound designer. But I think if you go for talented, talenthold, for instance, I don't know if it's there anymore, because I couldn't find it. Okay, but it's still there. That's good. But I mean, they probably come because they have something at heart. They can probably do nothing at all when they start. I don't know. So what kind of qualities are we looking at?
So from a sound designer's point of view, that's what I make the most in dramaturgy and stuff. But from a sound designer's point of view, I always tend to look for one thing mainly, which is that the person is curious. So if the person seems curious enough to both learn, but also to be able to have an imagination and really play, that is for me the one thing I try to look for also when they send me examples. So for example, we've had 4 people from here, from Sonic College through DR at Genstart. So we've had, for example, from I think it's called Musikvidenskab, musicology on the university. They're much, without naming all of them and without naming any names, they tend to be less good at imagining and playing with sound in a way that I think you learn here, seems like it, because the people we've been hiring or have had as interns usually are really good at actually playing and saying, okay, so now we're actually going into this universe and how would it sound like here? So the ability to play and to actually have an imagination and be curious about it, that's what I think is, for me as a sound designer, the most important trait.
Anything else?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not really a future employer of talents or people who produce, but we have just, our organization, along with another organization, just started this new independent education program called EDON, or the Ether, which is kind of like Super 16 or Super 8 or 18 frames. What they are for film, the Ether should be for sound. So we're trying to educate sound storytellers and people who would like, I mean, obviously they have to go through this whole application process, so they're really talented and really gifted, but what we found was really important was that they needed to have curiosity, but also a concept, or at least a wording or something, an idea of what sound could be, instead of just reproducing all these concepts or something that are in podcasting right now. I really think, and that's why I told that I said that we're in a content crisis, is that there's a whole new frontier in sound that will open itself if not next year, maybe in 5 years or 10 years, I don't know. The process is pretty slow, but what we found and what we're doing right now, the first semester, there's 3 in total, is that we're trying to scrape all what they think and know about podcasting, what the concepts are, and really trying to make it a lab for new ideas, new ways of producing audio. And I think that's really important. But I mean, your future employers will most probably want you to do a cheap version of Genstart at a media, or produce sound for a hero podcast or a true crime podcast. There's so many of them out there, but we're yet to see a lot of new podcasts in the future, I think.
Can I just say to that, I know that actually, especially DR and P1 are trying to relaunch sort of the radioreportage, basically, in that sense, and they really want to recreate what they had in maybe the 80s and 90s and before that also. But and I think especially in my boss, we had set as the goal that we at Genstart and other PIT programs that we try to get out there at least once a month, because so it's not all studio driven. And I think you're very right. Being in a studio all the time has very certain limitations, and I think so thinking out of the box in that sense should be what we all here strive for to do. So also just to get out if you have an idea, and I would urge anyone to do that, just start recording stuff. I've recorded my kids all the time, which I'm sure will be handy one day if I'm able to make a story about that. But I think you're very right. Being in a confined studio space is not where we get a natural response either. So I think doing that and rethinking that is a very brilliant idea, I think.
I know this also because, DR at the Producers' Day were really explicit. The duty to help produce what is out there instead of just covering what the Podimo is successful at, or because DR has the means and the ability to really produce something else, and coincidentally, DR is also what started the Ether. We had some research funding, and they're funding the Ether every year for the next 3 years.
So we are going more hippie in a way. So like we're gonna play a lot, we're gonna fool around, and or what?
I think I played a lot for the last 5 years since I left DR. Sorry to say, no, it was fun in DR as well. But for me, making the Nordic Podcast Academy, every time I'm like doing a course and I go in a room like this, I'm like, whoa, all these new brains, all these new ideas. I think it's so lovely to like see how can we open up these minds and finding out what's inside and how can we tell their stories. And I really think that podcasting is a very nice way to like give birth to talent in all kinds of future medias and platforms and so on, because it's pretty easy to make sound. You can get an idea, you can go into a studio or just take your phone, try it, and then play it and wow, listen. So for me, podcasting is like a very a lot of diversity. I really meet up a lot of different people with a lot of nerdish niches. And in that way, I think it's easy to pick up on this in sound. So also when it comes to, you talked about the drama, but also when it comes to the more humor-related formats, I actually also think that the sound and podcasting is a nice playground. It's like an incubator to try out stuff that could maybe go and be successful later on.
Any other? Okay, so which kind of frames do you then need when you take people into your place? What is it important to offer? Then so you can see, okay, we have you can be safe here, or you can. That would be one thing. It could be make a space for you to play and all this stuff. But still, you are there also to learn and to actually be able to produce something when you've been through this. So you have also to know about deadlines and hard work and doing something over and over again or something like that. So how do we make these frames for these talents?
It's a really hard question, but airtime, definitely. And I'm looking for the representative from DR, but I really think it's so important to try it on. This fail fast, just do it again and again, and for a lot of hours. And in that way, I miss the radio a bit because the podcast is more formatted, but you can still make a lot of podcasting with open air, just try it. Fail, try again. So I think, practice, airtime, and we need to find spaces, small safe spaces where we can actually give this airtime. We tried to do it in a format called Nordic True Stories. That is a format made for talents who can come in, in this, like I said before, incubator, do small kind of stories with some dogma rules around them, so don't get this fristil-syndromet, It can be difficult just to do something, but to help them into a frame, it is a hard question because nobody ever wants to listen to these kind of stories. So who will fund them? Who will pay for them? It's always this very hard question.
But what do you mean about you're missing radio and what's...
just these 3 hours morning radio every day. Just trying, But, you could do that in podcast also.
But could you mirror that, in a way? When you are intern there, you could say, okay, now you make a podcast, you have to be for 3 hours, and you have to talk about something you don't know anything about.
Yeah, you could do it.
If you're looking at me, then I think when they come to, for example, our show or other shows, they tend to, if they're journalists, they start seeing a few. So the thing is, they have a few days just learning the ropes. What are we doing? How do we talk? Which terms do we use? So I think you're very right. Learning by doing is the right approach. And I think what has done us good, at least, is that we've used our interns as just you should be doing the same as a full employee at DR. So we had, for example, our sound designers. They make They made as much as I do, for example, on every episode. And I think that's part. And the journalists, they make an episode each, at least 1.5 weeks, I think, or maybe 2 weeks. So it's definitely encouraged, I think, and I think that's really the way forward, that you get airtime. So I really agree with that. But also, I think that a lot of it has also to do with what we haven't talked so much about, that finding your own, we talked about subculture before, and it being a niche product, but also that you sort of find your style early, but also find what topic that you want to actually cover. Most journalists, they actually do this. They have a field of expertise. So if you actually get that or have an interest here in one way, you can start by doing a lot on those stories, for example.
But is then base enough for them to play and fool around and stuff?
Yes, and definitely encourage them to do it, and helping them in the way that they don't make the big mistakes like we all did to begin with, or at least telling them why. But I think internships are a great way of learning. I know last year there wasn't any, at least I'm aware, there wasn't any for DR Dokumentar. The P1 podcast section didn't have any applicants. And I think Tiden, which is another DR podcast, didn't have any either. One thing I think we could also talk about is is it sexy enough to be in podcast compared to other, and how do we make it more sexy, or how do we get awareness out there that it is super interesting, that you can actually decide a lot of storytelling yourself? But maybe that's for another show. I don't know.
No, I think we can take it, and maybe I could ask you, Anna, because when I talk to a lot of students, a lot of them say, "Okay, I'm afraid of ending sitting in the studio from 8 in the morning to 4 in the afternoon and never get out, don't see the sun in the winter and stuff like that, because I'm just editing all the time or making sound or music or something, especially from here, of course." So the idea about getting out of the room, making some reportages or sound fields recordings like you did, right? Maybe could be more part of it. I don't know. Is it because of the budgets are low, or why was it just a reputation?
I think most of the projects I've been a part of would be interesse-timer, if I should actually go out and record stuff. Maybe a few, there's been some time, but mostly I've been in projects where it's like just hurry up. I've been working a lot as a freelancer, so it's always how many days do you need? I need 3. Okay, you can have 2. Okay, I'll try. And then that's how it ends. So I think, yeah, more time, more money, of course. But another thing I think is often when people have been like in an internship or something, and then they finish their education, could be Sonic or could be journalism, something like that. If they don't get a job right away, like a real job where you go somewhere every day, you're pretty much on your own in the podcasting stuff, and then people send you stuff to make, and you never meet anyone except if you go out and really try. And that's not very inspiring. So I think it would be great if there were some kind of fellowship you could apply for right after Sonic or something else. And maybe there's room for 2 new journalists, 2 new sound designers, 2 new, what do I know, actors, something like that. And the main title is podcasting, because then someone would help you to get out of the echo sound design chamber. So other people from other places, because it took me a long time to get to know people that didn't think exactly like me.
And I think I'm on a mission to try and teach the journalists good behaviors, so we can do our shows and our recordings, making our tapes as good as possible. So when it comes to you have the time to do the art, because a lot of the time the sound designer is sitting fixing very bad tapes, or not only the sound quality, but also because the concept wasn't clear and so on. Almost everything's too long and you need to cut it down, and then it was half of your time before you actually came to the funny part. So when we're teaching journalists who want to do podcasting, everything, we always bring the sound designer along on the first day, actually, just to make archives so you can find your stuff, because it's also one of the things that you can use a lot of time, because I saved it on some desktop somewhere I forgot about. So I think it's also like this working together, having the respect of your job and my qualities, your qualities, and get a feeling in the start of the project, actually before you push the record bottom.
Yeah, you have something?
Well, on a big scale, podcasting is like a poor industry in some ways, because in our organization, basically our MO right now is look at film, what they've got, we want that. That's how the ether came to be, but we're also looking into, can you make Filmværkstedet, or can the Danish Film Institute come in and do what they do in terms of education after you've been educated? Because basically your education is, I'm not completely into what you're doing here at Sonic, but I mean you're learning sound design for both film, podcasting, and so on. And it seems like film is like the promised land, and podcasting is your safety. And then you go, and kudos to that. You go as an intern, get some mud under your nails. That's the only way to really learn the craft. But in film, there's all kinds of ways to be in a community, try to experiment, try to look into all the other things that are. But I really believe that these different parts of the system will come, if not next year, in 3 years maybe.
Okay. I remember the old days in DR, and you also, Dorte, we had for 45 minutes program, we have 3 weeks of editing plus recording. Pretty okay. And now you tell about how much 5 or 6, 7 days or something. Oscar, you told about it for Operation Pellegrino.
That was a long time for making
5 episodes or what?
It was like 10 days for making the music, and then 2 days for episode 1, and then 1 day for each episode.
Yeah, so that's 6 days for doing 5 episodes. Or maybe how long?
How was it for you?
Yeah, 1 or 2 days for one episode of editing and sound design.
Yeah, it's crazy, right? Yeah, compared to it, this is really, so you have to really have to be fast and do all these decisions very quickly. And in that way, I think you can probably scare some people.
Yeah, I thought about it a bit because we have a sound designer from Sonic College in Rakkerpak Productions, and it took me actually a couple of years before he one day admitted that he was afraid of the content. In that way that he was afraid making decisions. He hated it when something was like 5 minutes too long, and I just said, just cut 5 minutes somewhere. And he could sit and stare on the cursor for like panicking, freezing. And it was so good for us finally to have this conversation, because then I could help him or just avoiding telling him to do it. But I think he used a lot of time walking around, and I think I hadn't seen it coming, and I think it could be more common, and I can get it because it's not what you're trained in, it's what we're trained in as journalists.
But this is only in Sonic College, but if you look at it overall, for both journalist students and Sonic students, I think it's a kind of a gap of expectation, all that we learn, all the possible ways that we can do something, and all the considerations, and we'd say always pick up all the good examples, and then when you come out, you have to, now you start, and tonight you have half an hour of well-produced radio or podcast. That's really still hard, also for the journalist.
Yeah, I don't know the answer, but for a start, you could not use interns as a resource in production. I think a lot of interns, they maybe after a month or something, they are an employee, and that way they don't even experience it. I don't know, because it would also be false declaration to be like, yeah, you have all the time in the world and you can do everything. But at least when you're an intern, that's where you can actually try and maybe get better at thinking new thoughts, not just like making ender nå hinanden. That will be a start, at least.
I agree on that, Anna. And every time we're so lucky that we get a sound designer internally, because it's kind of seldom that we're so lucky. But I always see it as a chance, not you learning from me, but the opposite. We really, really need your thoughts. When it's coming to IA, we're kind of lost. I know that you're like far ahead of us here at this school. So we actually try every time to take some kind of shooting Moonstar project, shooting for the moon, and like last one we had from here, we made a lot of experiments doing sound books in kind of new ways, and we didn't have a costumer for that. We will do in the future, I think, but we made a lot of very fun and cool experiments. So yeah, I think that's the fun part of this, and we're like very dependent that you also come to us with your thoughts and ideas.
So okay.
Yeah, but just to give you guys a pitch if you want to work in podcasting, because it sounds like it's worst working conditions and like. But I mean, working as the sound designer on a podcast, if it's the more filmic podcast or documentaries or something like it, you have a much bigger part. Basically, you're like, if you're working with a journalist, at least, you're like the main storyteller. You paint the entire scene. So much room for creativity, and also I think the film business is struggling. The podcasting is on its way up, and we've seen podcasts like Tyrann or De Lovløse, where you really get why the sound designer needs to have proper time to really build this Hollywood sound or creating scenes for your ear. So, I mean, that's why you should look into podcasting, and you will fall in love with it if you're talented enough and you get the right conditions and the right team. Some of the maybe best directors in film documentaries starting up in podcasting or radio. I know for a fact that they miss the days where they can go about it the way that you can in sound, because sound is a much freer canvas to paint on.
Yeah, it's the best.
Yeah.
I mean, When we then look at it here and say, okay, we have several educations working with the podcast, and there are a lot of companies out there. Is there a way that we could think of that we could work better together, so we should not only be we are in school, we have to go for internship for 4 months and then we come back? Could we do something together in a way? So we say, okay, now some of you guys come here and we come there, and you could kind of share.
First of all, the educations should work more together, and maybe try to put together some people from creative design or something like that in Emdrup, and a theater instructor and a sound designer or something like that for 2 weeks. Maybe someone who chose to work with podcast for 2 weeks or something like that. So when you are on your education, you already begin to think and meet people who thinks differently than yourself. So that's one way of working together.
Well, I think it's a very, very good idea also, and I think in terms of us having actually to look for these talents, I know there still is the talent team, but also I think you could make a much better collaboration between institutions in that sense, and I think DR has a big responsibility to take part of that. Unfortunately, it's not my desk to take that decision, but I think us as program and the podcast floor where I'm at, we tend to, in sound design at least, we tend to look for talents mostly here, but when we try to have search for interns other places, it's not a lot of people who has the storytelling gene and the sound design gene at heart, which I think you need to work on our floor at least. So I think we can pair them up. I think that's a really good idea. Pair them up with other storytellers and learn their craft, or take key takeaways. And boot camps like that, if you set 2 people together, something good will come out of it, especially if it's 2 creative persons who's storytelling in 2 different ways and how to cross. And I'm sure DR would be very up for that collaboration also, especially in sound design.
And what about after some older Sunny guys out here have been out for some years, now we want to learn more. So Anna, you went to the journalism school, but what could we do in terms of making new courses or new collaborations with other guys that you might apply for together with you, maybe, I don't know. So in a way that we could do something together. I don't know. Have you any ideas out here? Then please ask for them. They can have a microphone out, or any of you guys here.
Yeah, I think education and courses are very good, but I'm longing to hear your products. I was like, make a portal where you can hear all of your stories. That would be an important way to me to go and look for talent. And I think we could do it together, or you could just do it yourself. But I think that would also be a way to do it. Again, this show it, don't tell it. And instead of just learning, then publish it. And then I think it should be mandatory that every student here was at your place, Søren, sitting for a week or 2 and just watch and learn.
And I think mentorships, in a sense, from other sound designers also. There's some great ones out there, also at Mono and stuff like that. If you could have a mentor for your work currently, so I'm working on this, and maybe just come, like you have a vejleder at other courses, so you would have one who works with it, who could see that could also be an idea. or simply like have a story, like make some pitches for like an intro for the stuff. I think that would be a good idea. Mentorships, especially, and mentor groups.
And if you have some mentors, one of you, if you were the mentor, let's suppose that now, then some of these guys would come here, and then how would that work? Would you have time for that?
Yes and no. But I think
anyone would like.
I think we do. It's in DR's interest to come and take and sort of pass on what we do, and also to have new talent coming in. DR should be a place where there's constantly people are going in and out, and people not be stuck for too long, I think. So I think it's a good thing that mentorships also to start up, as we talked about, having a community in some sense. And I talked with the one and only Ida Skjærk down up, Dato's sound designer sitting right there, about having a community in some sense, or also get, if not unionized, then at least like having a Facebook group for us in that sense would be very helpful. I think someone should just make that Facebook group soon, I think.
Yes, okay.
Oscar.
I've been thinking throughout. So the community thing, I know there's this guy called Benjamin Rosillo who went here as well. He's making something called the Sound Cafe at somewhere at Nørrebro, where you can come and have a desk if you're a freelancer and then just talk to each other. So I think that's going to be a nice place. Like I came in contact with him because I wanted a studio, and there are like several studio spots. So that is one thing that could be nice. Like he's facilitating that. Maybe Sonic could like, I don't know, do these sort of hubs, or maybe also like the Eater, and I don't know, yeah. And then I was also thinking, because I'm at Zetland and we have this talent team of journalist talents, that would be like an obvious, put together with sound designers on like avanceret medieproduktion. I feel like
some of our courses here.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
And I'm like teaching people at Zetland the audition right now, like how to. So, and I would actually love to. You can go learn Pro Tools at this. I don't know, these 2-day courses. That would be kind of nice if we were to change to Pro Tools. I'm not really decided about that because audition is. That was my thoughts about this. I think for now.
The small courses, which is like specific for. Someone who's good at coming up with the story but not very good at telling it, or someone who's very good at sound designing but not very good at interviewing, or something like that. These more specific things that you can do 5 days after you're educated, maybe several years after. That could be nice. More.
You have just one.
No, I mean, this whole thing with keep educating yourself in podcasting and sound is kind of like a non-thing right now, which is a real shame because people who work at DR or TV2 or Zetland, I mean, by way of their contract, they get means to go and have courses, but no one's really doing courses that are specific or what you really need. And we are looking into that, but I mean, again, it's kind of like with the ether. I mean, a leap of faith, or just, I mean, trying it out and seeing if it works. But to me, I think it's the government that needs, the Ministry of Culture that needs to recognize that this is an art form. This is a really important segment of our culture, and we get better content. We get more professional workers if we put in at least the money that, or at least a part of the money that film, music, and all that is getting. Hopefully, see something. I keep talking about 3 years from now, but that's what we're working for.
Okay. Any ideas from out here?
Or maybe not a question, but you were talking about like developing talents and all of this. And one of the main thing you said was to play and use your creativity and all these things, imaginations, and have a place for that. From my point of view in the business, there's a lot of medias doing podcasts, because they need to, because all the other mediums are doing it. And therefore, not a lot of money is put into that. So I see a lot of places where there's definitely not a lot of room for creativity in the podcast production. And yeah, you have DR, maybe you have some more room for it there. You have some of the production companies who specifies in this, but you also have a lot of basically newspapers, news mediums, more or less having to produce podcasts, where I definitely don't see that kind of creativity or place for that much creativity. How do you see that? Is that a problem?
I think we need more stadium right now, and I don't think it's a problem. I think I'm really, really hopeful for this industry. It's a very, very young business still, like 10 years when Serial came out. Yeah. I think the money will follow the good content, and it's my core belief that keep focusing on the storytelling. I think we have to do it, and you can see what Genstart did for us a couple of years ago. Every factual news podcasts were like so boring, and now you can't do that anymore because you set a standard over there. So I think it will be coming, and I can feel it in my own company. Like we get more and more room for the sound design, for example. So I think that this is a movement, but it's also constantly. I do a lot of advertising for clients, and it's always a quest to keep them posted and to be aware that they need to make good quality. But I actually think it's coming.
Yeah, and we are running out of time now, so private companies and stuff like that, they are actually starting doing podcasts also that support their stuff, and we have a lot of funding out there. It's getting easier and easier to get money out of there. I know from not easy, but it's easier than it was no-go some years ago. So, okay, I think this is it. Time's up, and thank you for joining, and see you around, all guys.